Hi, I'm Mark Joseph. Welcome to CNN Culture Crash, a weekly look at the hot issues from a 20-something perspective. This week our guests are two young political activists. Mark Hardy has been called everything from David Duke Hardy to Uncle Clarence Thomas. He's a student at the University of California, Riverside and the founder of the Conservative American Coalition. Mark has received death threats for his columns in the campus newspaper. Todd Warden's claim to fame is surviving as a liberal in conservative Orange County, California. He works in Senator Barbara Boxer's California office and also with the liberal advocacy group Alliance for Survival. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's start with the Paula Jones case. The former Arkansas State employee who has accused the president of sexual harassment and violating her civil rights. Mark, you're not a big Clinton fan, but isn't this really denigrating the presidency itself?
Well, I think that Paula Jones's allegations are very serious, and I think that they demonstrate flaws in President Clinton's character. The man is a womanizer. He's sexually harassing women, and I think that we need to look into these charges to see if they are true.
Todd, do you think if these charges had been known before the election, would especially young Americans have voted for the president?
I think the allegations themselves are, in fact, hearsay to this degree. One thing we need to look at is that the allegations have come at a time after the election, whereas the credibility has been lost as we've seen the president become elected, and now these come up later. It's tabloids go to the presidency.
Are we paying way too much attention to this stuff? I mean, this is...
No, not at all, not at all. Paula
Absolutely.
Jones is a citizen, and the President Clinton, he's a citizen also. So why shouldn't we look into these charges? Is the president above the law? Is he allowed to womanize and harass women? I say no. Let's investigate the president.
Now, we have to look at, first of all, if Paula Jones had come out earlier during the candidacy, as Anita Hill did come out during the Clarence Thomas issue, we need to look at this and say, here's a woman who, her very own sister says that she's in it for the money.
But as a liberal, shouldn't you be concerned about women's rights and feminist rights?
Yes,
Why are you not
feminist
concerned about Paula
rights,
Jones?
women's rights are key in this case. But one thing we need to look at is the credibility that is being brought up. It's very lacking and very thin.
I say that Paula Jones is a citizen, and she deserves her day in court, and we need to investigate the president to the
And
fullest
her
extent
day
of
in
the law.
court will come after the presidency is over.
Well, Mark,
think
we
now-
haven't held other presidents to this standard, have we? We didn't investigate President Kennedy to this extent. There's been lots of presidents who've had various indiscretions. Why are we focusing so much now on this president?
Because I believe that President Clinton has conducted himself in a manner that's not consistent with being president. He's too loose and fancy-free. I think that he flirts a little too much with the young women, and I think that the chickens have come home to roost. We need to investigate him and find out if he's harassing women.
Well, Todd, at what point does the private behavior affect the way a president conducts himself in office?
President Clinton's behavior at the time he was governor is something that happened at the time he was governor. He's now been elected president. Yes, Paula Jones should have her day in court, but the critical issue here is that it's going to impede President Clinton's progress. We need to sit there and be wary of these sort of allegations. Something like this brought on by the Republicans.
As an American citizen, I take offense to that. I do not
searching.
want a president who harasses women representing me in office, period. We need to find out if he's harassing women, if he's hurting women. He needs to be out of office.
Let me throw this out to both of you. Paula Jones, how credible is she as an accuser of the president?
I think we've already seen that through the proceedings as through the media. Her credibility is very minimal, and yes, we need to adhere to her women's rights, but we need to also look at the fact that everyone around her doesn't even support her, except for the Republican Party.
Mark?
I totally disagree. I've never met Paula Jones personally, as I've never met President Clinton personally, but I think that just by her bringing the charges, she deserves her right to her day in court. We don't know who is telling the truth or not, but I believe Paula Jones, and I think that I want to get to the bottom of this.
Now, vis-a-vis Jennifer Flowers, the former first person who accused him, is she more credible than Jennifer Flowers or less? What do you think?
The issue at hand here is the tabloid media attacking the president, a man who is a basic average American who has been attacked as if he was a British political figure. We don't need to separate and segregate the people by bringing in this sort of media. This sort of tabloid is destructive to the country.
See, he keeps focusing on the tabloid media. I'm focusing on the behavior of our president. This has nothing to do with the tabloid media. It has everything to do with President Clinton womanizing, spending time with Jennifer Flowers and harassing Paula Jones. And I believe Paula, and I believe Jennifer.
That's the last word. Next up, caning in Singapore and condoms in schools. Stick around. Michael Fay's caning was worldwide news. The 18-year-old American was caught tagging cars in Singapore and paid the price. Now, lawmakers in St. Louis, Cincinnati, and California have proposed laws that would allow similar punishment in this country. Todd, is it time to cane in the U.S. as well?
Absolutely not. The caning mechanism is brought about by a public dissent with the taggers. Something that we need to look at is graffiti in itself is, to some people, an art form, to other people, a protectionism of their areas. And we need to sit there and realize that this sort of uncalled for, unjustified attack on civil rights is unfounded.
Wait, let me start off by saying, first of all, graffiti and crime is not an art form. It's crime, and it's illegal. And we need to punish these people who are tagging the walls in our streets. We need to punish them to the fullest extent of the law. And if we need to cane them, let's cane them. I'm serious. We need to really cane these young people to let them know that, look, it's not right to tag, and it's not right.
And had Michael Fay never come up, where would we be? Where would we be? Would we be paddling now? Absolutely not. The media attention that this received was what brought about the Orange County representative to suggest that we paddle 10 times in front of the city.
We in America, we're confused because we don't know what to do. There's young people painting on subways, painting on buses, writing on the walls of private businesses. That takes away from our country, and it takes away from our society.
Coming back,
let's cane them, and let's let them know.
We're coming back to the era before the French Revolution with the guillotine, public assault.
That's a bit extreme. I'm just talking about caning people that are found guilty of writing on our
A couple more
streets.
issues in the news the past couple of weeks, especially this week. Surgeon General Jocelyn Elders has proposed at least studying the legalization of drugs. Where do you come out on that, Mark?
I think that Jocelyn Elders is totally wrong, because that's essentially giving up the war on drugs. We don't want to tell kids that it's legal to do drugs. You can just walk into a store and buy crack or cocaine or pot. I think that we need to stay in the war on drugs, and we need to punish people who sell drugs and those who use drugs. Let's not legalize it, because that, to me, is just like saying it's okay to use drugs.
And the reality of it is that we have Canada, who just legalized the growing of hemp. We have other nations in the Scandinavian regions who do not necessarily advocate, but they've come to the realization that instead of a war on drugs, let's come to grips with this and use this to benefit, at least be able to stem the tide and to at least give some sort of legalization that would allow more control instead of the rampant border crossing that we see with the drug traffic.
Well, Mark, Todd makes the point. You know, it doesn't seem to work. It didn't work with alcohol prohibition. Why do you think it'll work with drugs?
Well, he mentioned two countries. Canada, they legalized drugs, legalized hemp, just not for smoking purposes, just for growing and for making homes, etc. And in Scandinavia, if you walk down some of the areas where drugs are legal, you'll see people, you know, high, you'll see people out of it, and you'll see negative effects of drugs.
And at the same token, you can see that anywhere you go because people use drugs.
But the bottom line is
we live in a drug culture.
Drugs are poison, and I don't want my young people, I don't want anybody to think that drugs is okay, because they're wrong.
The reality of it, so is smoking, so is alcohol. People need to be responsible for their own actions. If you let people drink, they're going to be inebriated, they're going to crash their cars.
So according to that logic, let's legalize everything. We need to stand up in this society and say, look, drugs are wrong, and just solely on that basis, they should not be legal.
Because
it's wrong, and that's enough for me.
How is it wrong?
Enough.
Wrong. Who says wrong? Wrong is your.
Who says wrong?
Wrong is your definition of wrong.
Have you ever gone to a ghetto and seen people high on crack? Have you ever seen a crack baby? I think that drugs are wrong, and we don't need to legalize it, because we're going to have more crack babies, we're going to have more people overdosing on drugs, and we're going to have more Kurt Cobains.
Thanks for joining us. Next time, Madonna and Amy Grant come out swinging. We'll talk music, morality, and more on CNN Culture Crash.